experience, and we lick our wounds and we move forward. And here's the great thing about my mentality and mindset, all right? We went through this thing called the jury trial. It was my first jury trial ever, trial by way of jury, where it's a special verdict, not a general verdict. And the reason it was a special verdict is because the administrator tells the jury the law, and then the jury decides on the facts. So the verdict is guilty on both counts. Both are class 4 felonies. Sentencing is set for the 19th. At sentencing, we still have our right of allocution, so we're not completely cooked yet, and we put ourselves in a position to appeal, and for good reason. But the lessons to be learned here are valuable. I pay acute attention to detail. And one of the things that I noticed was the little Jesuitical trick at the end. And this is so important for you guys that decide to go through trial by way of jury. Okay, I learn from my failures. Okay, I've never learned from a fight that I won. I don't learn anything from fights that I win. I learn from fights that I lose. And with that said, I want to point something out that is very, very clever. It's a Jesuitical trick that they use, and it is very interesting. There's a jury instruction towards the end. The Heavenly Father called my attention to it immediately because it was written kind of vague and ambiguously, and I pointed it out and said, hey, look, you know, the allotment of time is vague and ambiguous for a resident. And I'm not going to dispute what the jury says, all right? The jury has made their decision, and that's okay. But what I find interesting is that the statutes that are used to support what classifies as a resident are very vague and ambiguous, all right? And the other thing, the interesting little trick that I saw was the jury instructions upon deliberation state that you must come up with a unanimous decision. Okay, it doesn't say you must come up with a unanimous decision to find this man guilty. It says you must come up with a unanimous decision. Now, I've always often wondered how juries in the lower courts consistently come up with unanimous verdicts clean across the board. It's the display of language in the jury instructions that lead the jury to believe, and I'm not saying that happened in this instance. I'm saying the way that it's written would cause any man to think that he cannot go home unless everybody agrees unanimously upon guilt or innocence. But the truth is, not everybody has to agree. You can cast your vote how you see fit. Before we departed with the jury, I'd given clear thought to what was said, and in hindsight, it's always a catch-22, but we learn, right? And it's important for me to share my my lessons, my trials, my tribulations with you guys, all right?
We're thirsty.
Yeah, and a pack of smokes if you don't mind. So, it's very important that people that are getting ready to go into trial by way of jury or jury trial, however you look at it, really pay attention to the jury instructions. I caught it in the first instance. I made issue of it, but essentially, I consented to it. There was an offer made. Mark said, hey, this is the law I'm bound by, and I didn't say, no, this needs to be corrected. Let me see if I can find these jury instructions, because this should be pointed out to everybody. paperwork here to go through. I think this is it. There they are. Maybe. Yes. All right. I want to point this out. Now, I'm going to read this. And I just want people to take notice of this. Where did it go? Show you this slick little trick I noticed as soon as I find it. Here it is. Instruction 11, submission to the jury. Number A. This case is now ready to be submitted to you for your consideration. Any verdict you reach regarding each count must be unanimous, agreed to by all jurors. Now, let me point something out. It's not what they're saying, it's what they're not saying in the criminal matter. And I caught this. The Heavenly Father drew my attention to it. I made an argument about it. Mark said, hey, look, this is what I'm bound by. I consented by agreeing to it, saying, okay, if that's the law, when I knew full on well it wasn't the law. The way he pronounced it to me was very slick. He said, look, all it takes is one to say not guilty. You know, this is in your favor. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, okay, whatever. As he read it to the jury, I realized I had cinched the noose around my own neck. I'd cinched the noose around my own neck. And this is why. This case is now ready to be submitted to you for your consideration. Any verdict you reach regarding each count must be unanimous. And when it says must be unanimous, it should follow must be unanimous to find this man guilty, or to find this person guilty. Your decision that is reached must be unanimous. The juries keep going into these jury rooms thinking that they're instructed that they must be have a unanimous verdict or else nobody goes home. But that's not true, ladies and gentlemen. But it's the little Jesuitical tricks they utilize like that play in their favor. So no harm, no foul, but I do want to point that out for other people. Agreed to by all jurors. Now, it should reflect that in order to find the defendant guilty of the charge, he must be unanimously convicted by all the jurists. Now, I'm not saying that would have made a difference on my case one way or the other. I am pointing out that is a really, really, really slick dick way to persuade the jury that they have no choice but to make a unanimous vote of innocent or guilty. Now, my final argument before the jury, of course, was 9 Supreme Court justices almost never agree on anything. And I stress the fact that they are the most world-renowned legal scholars, and they almost agree on nothing. So, if you have very, very, very educated legal scholars that don't ever agree, it's amazing to me how people don't contemplate that in their head. But just the same, we still have an appeal. We still have sentencing. You have a right of allocution before sentencing. Let my lesson be a teaching lesson to you. I'm going to rip through more stuff. I learned so much being in there. And actually going through a trial by way of jury. They call it a jury trial, because that's what it is, an administrative procedure. So, for the next couple weeks, I'll be busy. Sentencing is on the 19th. Again, convicted of 2 Class 4 felonies. All right? And nobody ever proved that, one, the statutes of Nebraska apply to me, and 2, nobody proved that the statutes and codes aren't prima facie evidence of law. But I didn't do my job. So, with that said, I love you guys, and I just wanted to point that out for any of you guys in a trial by way of jury right now. You really, 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 really need to pay attention to the jury instructions, okay? Because that right there is probably what hung me out to dry. Because there were a couple people in there, I had a feeling, that agreed with what I was saying. However, we're right before Thanksgiving. They're being rushed to a decision. They all want to go home and screw it, guilty. Let's get out of here. So, with that said, no animosity towards the jury. Wonderful learning experience. You wouldn't believe how many agents and agency came up and shook my hand and said, you are really, really good, and you should probably become a lawyer. And I go, I don't want to become a lawyer. But just the same, at the end of the day, there was nothing but respect given to me, even though I know what's going on is incorrect. All right? So, with that said, I love you guys. We'll talk to you soon. I'll do a video later tonight. We'll get back into learning and teaching. 16 strong before I finally got the wind taken out of my sails. You have to realize that I was taking on a multi-billion-dollar tax, essentially, that everybody believes they owe. So we'll go through some of my documents. You guys will get to see it. Remember, the jury made this decision, not the administrator. So I might have had more in my favor doing it in administrative proceedings versus doing a jury. A jury is very dangerous because the people really don't know. So let that be a lesson to you. Thanks for joining me, and I'll talk to you soon.